Well, good evening, and thank you all so much for taking time out to attend the webinar this evening. If I can just introduce myself, my name is Joanne Gregory. I'm the Quality Mark Development Manager for the BDA. I've been engaged in this post now since 2007, and I've been in a position where I've actually seen the Quality Mark standards develop and certainly adapt to meet the very changing needs that we've experienced over those years for all environments, and indeed to support a lot of practice. I've also seen how we've developed a range of standards to fit across a wide range of organisations and the areas of service delivery that have come about really through greater awareness of dyslexia, and certainly from a wider understanding of the needs of the dyslexic individual. And of course, as with everything, it's always useful when you have such movements supported by legislation, indeed acts of law. That certainly prompts action. So first then, if I can explain the title that we've given this evening's presentation, I found that we have members from schools and indeed universities present with us this evening, and the event has been advertised as dyslexia-friendly youth offending teams and indeed service providers. So really the principles that I'm going to be talking about will actually be applicable across all marketplaces, and I've tried to make it as universal as I possibly can do. So hopefully there's something in it for everybody. Okay. So apologies, as Aaron has said, if there is a delay coming up with the slides presenting in the green and my speaking. I will try and keep it. I'll speak as slowly as I can in that interchange. But just to go over the aims and objectives for the session, then what I'd like to achieve is that we'll all get an understanding of how to select the standards appropriate to your service provision, how the award is structured and how to interpret the criteria that make up the award, the process for achieving the award. Also would like to have a look at some costs and also the benefits of becoming a dyslexia-friendly service. Why is it that, we go through those standards, what's in it for us as an organisation. So I hope that's what you're all expecting from this evening. So just to start us off then, looking at the dyslexia-friendly quality mark and what does it actually mean to be dyslexia-friendly. Quite aware that it's a very well-used term, dyslexia-friendly, but what we are looking at is a very specific measure of good practice. Quite simply put, what we're looking to do is to evidence that organisations are changing policy to accommodate individuals with dyslexia, and that will result in good practice for everybody and an increased performance. That's what we're looking to achieve with the dyslexia-friendly quality mark. We know as well, as it states here, it's a well-documented fact that good practice, is good practice for everybody. Nobody has been harmed in receiving dyslexia-friendly good practice. And what we're looking for with the quality mark is really to harness, to promote good practice and to provide a structure to work to, and indeed to audit your services and your provision against. Okay, so let's look at the standards, let's look at the structure of the award then. So the BDA quality mark consists of a robust set of standards that are applicable to each of the marketplaces that we operate within. The standards were originally introduced through a steering group of organisations. All of the standards were trialled, they were tested, they were retested, tested again before they were eventually published. So we know that, number one, they're accepted by the industries and the marketplaces within which we're operating, and we also know that they are robust, they work, they have a direct impact on practice and provision. Each standard within the award is further broken down into a set of criteria, and examples shown here. So the standard that focuses, for example, on leadership and management may have as many as 8 criteria listed within it, and focusing each on very specific areas of practice. The slide here just demonstrates how that would look on the actual standards document. Dyslexia-friendly good practice therefore achieved by addressing each of the criteria that were listed within the standards that make up the award. And once you've done this, once you've addressed each of those individual criteria, you will then be ready for verification with the BDA. So that said, who was it available to? I've mentioned that it's had robust testing within all of the marketplaces. Well, the marketplaces within which it exists are listed here. So youth offending teams and probation trusts, individual schools, certainly within the further education setting, post-16 education and training providers, commercial organisations, children and young people services, universities and institutes of higher education, and we are also available internationally through a project that the BDA undertook probably about 2 years ago now, known as Veto. We were information on the Veto project, certainly on our website. Really the message here is that whatever field you're operating within, there will be a set of standards that will be applicable to you. And also, please don't feel that, if you're working towards the standards, that you're working in isolation, because this good practice is experienced and shared across a very wide remit, as indeed those standards and those organisations listed, they demonstrate. It's our aim, for the dyslexic individual to be supported right through from school, right through to their adult life, being able to access a high level of dyslexia, very good practice. And indeed, you are very much a part of this, tuning in and listening to, what the standards contain, and how you can actually adapt your own personal practices. The standards are available for download free from the website, and they do provide a full set of guidance. The documents, anybody who's been engaged in this process will know that it's a very transparent process. It has to be. There is nothing hidden. Everything that you need to achieve the Dyslexia Friendly Quality Mark is provided to you right at that very initial point of inquiry when you're downloading the standards. Even if you don't want to formalise your dyslexia-friendly practice by registering for the quality mark, there will be many little changes that you can make that will have a huge and positive impact for the dyslexic individuals, either within your organisation or those individuals that your organisation touches and reaches through your client base. So, just want to look now at how we go about it. What standards do we use? Who do we select? What standards do we select? So the list previously showed you the range of standard documentation that we have for the market across the market settings. However, it may not be that obvious for youth offending teams and probation trusts, and therefore I wanted to make this distinction, as you can see on the slide here. So for youth offending teams, the service standards that you need to load are the children and young people services, and for probation trusts, it'll be the whole organisation standards. But again, if anyone is in any doubt whatsoever, my email address will be given at the end of the presentation, and I would urge you to please contact me, and I'll make sure that you have the appropriate set for your setting. Okay, so I'd just like to move on now to give you an overview of the standards, so we can see and establish what the areas of service delivery that they review. Okay, so again, just taking youth offending teams as an example, this set of standards is very much a service focus. You can see this particular award is constructed of 5 individual standards, looking at leadership and management, practice, communication training, and indeed partnerships, how you're actually linking up with other service providers within your community. So in the case then of children and young people services or youth offending teams, that would be the set of standards. Traditionally, these standards are used by departments within what were local education authority settings, such as educational psychology, your SEN teams, for example. I don't think that you'll be surprised to see the standards cover the aspects that are listed here for service delivery. Okay, so if we were going to take certainly the children and young people services as an example, how would we actually meet the standard set then? What I've done is I've selected standard 1, leadership management, and indeed criteria 1.2, and it goes exactly as it states there. But it's asking that organisation policies demonstrate that senior personnel within the organisation are committed to ensuring the services offered to children and young people with dyslexia and their families' carers are both accessible and inclusive. So, if we were to look at this in more detail, then what is it that we're actually trying to provide? Okay, how would we actually interpret the standard? So we're looking to see then, is dyslexia stated within policy documents? Does it have a place there? Is the commitment responsibility of senior management team recorded? Are they supporting those documents and those policy statements? Is specific mention made to dyslexic individuals? How is this commitment by senior management team demonstrated? And more importantly, can you back this app. Okay. Again, just to explain that in more detail. What the things that we're looking for here then would be a copy of the relevant documentation, of course, that documentation being highlighted to show where it meets the criteria. How is the policy monitored and reviewed? I mean, this is a standard procedure within policy documents, but we would need to see by whom and how often is that policy reviewed. Often we find a statement is provided by a senior management team to meet this criteria. Statements are indeed a credible form of evidence, but care does need to be taken to ensure that they're provided on letterhead and that they are signed and dated. Authenticity is a key message throughout the whole of the quality mark, and it is very much a verification process. Sometimes within these policy documents you do get a statement saying, yes, we are committed as a senior management team, and that's a very positive statement made, but we need something more specific. We need to see how is that commitment being demonstrated. The verifier will always ask, can you prove it? Can you show me where or how this happens, for example? Findings from a review, i.e. past and present copies of a policy document to show how it has been updated and amended. You could be presenting minutes from a senior management team meeting to show reviews, and also that dyslexia-friendly status is a regular agenda item. All of those would actually contribute to being credible pieces of evidence. Okay, looking at the case of Probation Trust then, and here, as previously said, we'll be looking at the organisational standards, and the structure of that award, as you can see, spreads over 6 standards. So we're looking at policy, we're looking at meeting needs of client, communication, training, partnerships, and indeed how we're actually employing and approaching employment for different individuals. And again, I don't think anybody would be surprised that as a looking for a quality mark for dyslexia-friendly practice, these are the areas that we would be needing to investigate. So again, if I can just look at this a little bit more specifically, and how would we actually meet the standards best? Taking again standard 1 as an example, where we're looking at policy. Criteria 1.1 of the standard is looking at organisational policies. And this is a 2-part criteria. First of all, asking for you to highlight inclusive practice for dyslexia and conform to the Equality Act. The second part are accessible, and that organisation policies, are accessible and disseminated to interested parties. So again, how would we actually interpret that standard, and how would we actually find evidence to support it? Well, that first question we need to raise and to really look at, do policy documents that give reference directly about, to dyslexia? Is it specifically mentioned? What inclusive practice is stated within the policy document? And again, paying attention to this crucial aspect is, can you back this up? So things like, can you give examples of how the policy is implemented? Can you give examples of inclusive practice mentioned within your policy document? We really do need to see how a policy is actually implemented. Making a statement isn't quite enough to achieve it. Looking at the second part then of that criteria, are that policy documents are accessible, disseminated to interested parties. So the first question we would look at is, or the first bit we'd look at is, where actually are those policy documents held? How can staff access them? Yeah. Look at what format is the policy and how is it presented? The BDA has put together its dyslexia-friendly style guide, which offers some excellent advice and guidance on how to present information to ensure that it is accessible. The document is available for download, free download on our website if anyone's interested. Is the policy available on a website? If it isn't, do you have enabling technology to read the text out, or to help with enlarging font on your website? How can I access the information? How can I get hold of that? And again, it's just that last point there, that accessibility doesn't just located and where is the information held. It's also, very much focused on how can we access the information contained in those documents. Another aspect to consider with policy documents, again, we tend to be very much web focused, of course, but as a dyslexic individual, can a copy of the policy be posted out to me upon request? Is it available in alternative format? Okay, I just want to take some time then looking at the schools. I'm sure that you're getting the hang of this, and certainly the range of the overview, the standards that we're looking for. And I'm sure you can see the pattern forming here. Just to go through then, this is what you can expect from the school standards across the 4 4 standards of the award. Standard 3 of the schools award is concerned with the learning environment. The criteria that make up this particular standard provide excellent guidance in their own right as to what is considered to be dyslexia-friendly learning environment. The criteria listed can be used to help shape practice within the school setting. We're actually spelling out quite specifically what it is that we're looking for, so you can demonstrate that you have a dyslexia-friendly learning environment. Clue is in the standards. So moving on to universities then, again, very similar setup, similar content. Here we have 5 standards that make up the universities award. And again, let's have a look. Standard 2 then, just looking at that one at random then, identification of dyslexia and SPLD. So the criteria that would make up this particular standard would be concerned with what facilities and processes the university has in place for identifying students and indeed staff with dyslexia and SPLD, and the purpose of the process is follow-up on support. So in this particular scenario, university will be asked to provide to list the tools that are provided to identify dyslexia and SPLD within a student, and more importantly, the various points of entry the student will have for access type of assessment. So we'd be looking specifically at what would the referral process be, what is in place. Is it all expected to happen at enrolment, for example? And what other opportunities are made for a student, lecturer, member of staff to be identified for assessments? How many safety nets do you have in place to capture a student who is displaying difficulty? So that's really taking a look at this. This next part of the presentation really is concerned with the process. How do we go about it? The whole process begins really with your registration. Yeah, the standards document contains a registration form. That is, depending on what standards you download, it contains the applicable registration form. So once that has been completed and submitted into the BDA, the organisation then has 2 years to work through the standards, getting documentation in place, recording any changes to policy and practice, before they can then declare themselves ready for a verification visit. Some organisations may choose to work through the standards and make changes to practice without formally registering on the BDA Dyslexia Friendly Quality Mark. And indeed, these standards are in the public domain purely for the purpose of instigating change. The difference here, obviously, is that your hard work and good practice can only be recognised with the BDA Quality Mark status if you are registered onto the award. So also by registering with the onto Quality Mark process, then you can also receive some of the support services that are offered by the Quality Mark team. For example, a consultation meeting which can help to review the standards and the evidence to support what is applicable to your very unique setting. How do we actually evidence the practice within your setting against the standards? A mock verification visit is also available, and here is the clues in the name. We can give you a practice run of the review of your evidence and practices and offer you feedback as if it was the real thing, if it was a real verification visit. A lot of organisations are coming forward for those surveys, and I'm finding that to be a really helpful step towards achieving the quality mark. So from there, then we have a self-evaluation audit. That information then will feed into your action plan. All of your evidence will be needed, will need to be recorded on your record of evidence document. Almost acts as your index of your evidence and helps you to keep a very good track as to what you have in place to support the criteria. Helps you to make a reference to any cross-referencing. It's almost like a working document that will grow as indeed you work towards your verification visit. Then there's the verification visit itself, and we will look into the aspects of that in a little bit more detail next. And just to point out then that if you're successful at verification, you hold the award for a period of 3 years. Okay, so if I can just have a look at the audit in the first instance, various ways that you could set this process up really within your organisations. The norm tends to be that a lead person within a service is identified and elected as a caretaker, and that person is one of the key points of contact for collating evidence and for conducting that audit. It should be pointed out this stage that the quality mark and achieving the quality mark should never be considered the responsibility of one individual within an organisation. It is very much a whole organisation approach, and indeed it's very obvious very early on if it has landed on the doorstep of just one individual within the organisation. So yes, certainly assigning a person to be a caretaker or to be a lead for collating the evidence, but the responsibility needs to be and the dyslexia practice needs to be demonstrated throughout the whole organisation. Okay, so the initial audit against the criteria that make up the BDA Dyslexia Friendly Quality Mark Award. Various options that can be adopted for completing this process then. It can be completed per department or indeed per key service area, and it's normally then the lead person that will collect the results and the feedback from the department or the service areas, and from that information construct an action plan. So moving on then to the audit into an action plan. The audit will identify the organisation's current performance against a set of criteria, and indeed that can be ranked as listed there. The audit document is actually part of the standards, so it's nothing you have to reinvent. It's all included within the standards documentation. So really, when you're conducting that audit, your findings or your snapshot of where you're currently positioning yourself against the standards can form under those 4 headings. Obviously, focusing and developing would indicate to us then that there's some further work that needs to be done. And it's these 2 areas, this focusing and developing, anything that falls under those 2 headings in your audit that really need to be translated into your action plan. So that will then confirm then, what action needs to be taken for a start to ensure that the criteria is met, who will it be recorded by, and when will the action take place, and who will be responsible for that action. So when you're ready for verification, you will be asked to submit a copy of your action plan to the BDA, just in order that we can see, if you like, the journey that you've taken as an organisation to achieve those standards. It's a very good point of reference for us. So moving on then to the verification, I mean, obviously this is what everything hinges, towards really. So in preparation for your verification, you will submit your record of evidence document to the BDA. As I said previously, that gives us your index, if you like, your working document, your index of all of the pieces of evidence that you've collated to achieve the criteria, and helps us to see, precisely what you have in place to support the criteria set. So that will arrive into the BDA. On receipt of that, then we will then issue you with a verification plan. That verification plan, if you like, provides a snapshot, or a sample, sorry is the word I'm looking for, a sample of the criteria that we're going to be investigating and reviewing during that verification visit. The verification plan, that sample, is traditionally about 33% of the overall criteria that make up the award. So it is a sample to demonstrate that you have reached dyslexia-friendly practice. The visit itself then includes a review of the paperwork, the paper-based evidence, So this is where we will look at things like your policy documents supported by minutes of meetings, etc. During the visit, we will also conduct interviews with members of staff, dyslexic members, service users where appropriate, and also members of the senior management team. All of those interviews, I think it's worthwhile noting, are even included in the standard documentation. So as I said previously, there is nothing hidden. It's a very transparent process. So right from your initial inquiry, where you download the standards, you can even get a glimpse of the interview questions we are going to be asking you during your verification visit, probably in 2 years' time. So it's all there, completely transparent. Depending on the standards that you're using and downloading, will dictate then the interviews and the individuals that we will need to speak to during the verification visit. But of course, it is all detailed within those standards documents. There will also be an environmental audit. In the case of schools, for example, that will involve 3 classroom observations, where we will go in and review your practice and teaching and learning practice, and indeed the actual classroom setting itself. In the case of, for example, youth offending teams, that environmental audit will have us looking at your key public areas, looking at things like signage, how easy is it to navigate around the building, that sort of thing. And again, everything that we're looking for is standards. Again, there is nothing here. It's not a catch you out process. We want you to achieve the standards. The verification report and certificate of achievement will be issued if you are successful with you'll get a detailed report from us that will during the visit. It will clarify on the information that can support that criteria, and it will also give you any points for action, further things that you need to address during a given or within a given time scale. So upon successful completion then of the award and the successful visit, you will be issued with a certificate of achievement as well. You will also have use of the BDA's Quality Mark logo to display as you wish. And also, just another point to note again, that the award will be held for 3 years. After that 3-year period, there's an opportunity for an organisation then to be re-verified in order then to hold the award for a further 3 years. During that re-verification, we will be looking to see how your SAT service and how your standards have developed from that point of initial verification. So I'm sure you'll agree that 3 years is quite a long period of time for any organisation in any setting, and there have bound to be changes that have been made. So that's what we're looking for with that re-verification, just to see what you've done, how you've improved on services, and how you've made sure that the dyslexia-friendly procedures and processes have kept in line with your organisation's development. Okay. So the thing that everybody wants to know really is how much does it cost? Now, as you can imagine, there are separate set of standards, separate procedures for every version or every marketplace that we operate in with the quality mark. So what I've done here is I've listed the most common costing, which is applicable to youth offending teams, probation trusts, and indeed schools. So for further details on your particular settings, if you can go to our website, download the appropriate set of standards. The costing schedule is detailed within the registration form section of the standards. And if anyone's in any doubt, again, please email me. I'll be more than happy to clarify that with you. So just to run through that, when you initially register for the quality mark, you will be asked to submit a registration payment. And again, that's applicable across all of the standards. In the case of youth offending teams, probation trusts, and indeed schools, that registration payment will be £200 plus VAT. After a year of registration, you will then receive an invoice for an annual maintenance fee, and that value is, states is £75. The reason for that maintenance fee is really to ensure that the organisation is on track. If you are registered and you're paying your maintenance fee, then you can obviously participate in the additional support services that the BDA offers for the quality mark. So things like your consultation visit, in your mock verification visit if you're ready for that, or indeed on a more informal basis to request that items of evidence are reviewed via email, that sort of thing. So then finally, after 2 years, technically you should only have to pay that maintenance fee once, because after 2 years, of course, or year 2 from registration, you'll be due for your verification visit. And following your verification visit, the fee that's applicable there is £750. I should also clarify that the verification is conducted in 1 day. If you have several sites to your organisation, and this is applicable to universities and indeed to FE colleges, then several visits or site visits might need to be incorporated in that verification day, and that may see us going over that 1 day criteria. So that will all be arranged with you on as and when appropriate to your organisation. So once you've achieved the quality mark, then you will receive an invoice for an annual quality mark maintenance fee, status maintenance fee, and again, then in 3 years from the verification date, you will be eligible then for your re-verification. So as I say, then the verification is held, or the award is held for 3 years after the date of the verification. After those 3 years, then you will be eligible for a re-verification. And again, successful achievement of your re-verification means that you hold the award for a further 3 years. Okay, I hope that's clear. And as I say, if it isn't, then please do email me. My details will be provided at the end. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions directly. Okay. So the key question then is why do we do it? Why do we need to undertake the quality mark? There's several reasons why. The first one I want to explore with you is the fact that it directly supports the distinct needs of your client base. You know your clients, you know your customer area. Certainly, you know, when we're looking at the population in general terms, we know statistics, I'm sure, 15% of the population carry genetic background, makes them predisposed to specific learning difficulties. Typically, we see about 4% with very serious issues and 8% with mild to moderate difficulties. So again, if we're going to put that in the context of an educational setting, we're looking at about 5 to 6 pupils within a classroom of 30. So again, just makes it quantifies, what we're looking for, in terms of the population. We know dyslexia is out there. We know it exists, and if we're part of any service organisation, be it educationalist, be it commercial organisations, commercial ventures, we are all in the business of putting information out to our client base, and surely it's our responsibility to make that information as accessible as it possibly can be. Supporting an easier client base, their parents and their carers, it doesn't just start and stop with your client base. We need to consider our wider audience and indeed our wider stakeholders. And again, when we're talking about youth offending teams, when we're talking about probation trusts, I'm sure we're all familiar with these statistics and indeed the higher concentrations that we see of dyslexic individuals. The quality mark also provides a template of good practice. And what I mean by that, certainly we've seen in the case of the Quality Mark Award, it's set out. There's a set procedure. There are standards that need to be met. It's a very step-by-step process. Everything that you need in order to make sure that ensure that you are dyslexia friendly is included within that award. It does provide a structure. It provides a template in order for you to audit and make sure your practices are not discriminatory against dyslexic individuals, or indeed, that you are practicing positive good practice. Public recognition of a high standard of dyslexia-friendly practice. I think it goes without saying that the Dyslexia-Friendly Quality Mark is a very sought-after award. It's one of the most long-standing quality marks that's been around for quite some time now, and it's very much respected within its field. By achieving the Quality Mark Award, you're making a very big statement that if you're dyslexic, this is a safe place for you. This is a safe place for you to come and work, a safe place for you to come and study. It also says that we understand dyslexia, we know how to support you, and we value our good dyslexia-friendly practice. It really does set that bar. It also helps to meet legislative requirements, such as the Equality Act 2010. I think all audience members here are going to be affected by the AEN Code of Practice, and indeed the review that's thankfully coming to an end. And also Special Education Needs, Disability Act 2001, etc. It just helps make sure that we're in line with legislative practice. And more importantly, perhaps, it helps to develop a dyslexia-friendly society that enables people to achieve their full potential. And that indeed is the mantra for the BDA. So as I said, the standards are available for download free from the website, and they do provide full guidance. It is a very robust program. It's a very robust document as well. It does give you good step-by-step instruction. Even if you don't want to formalise your dyslexia-friendly practice, registering for the Quality Mark, there'll be many changes that you can make to your practice to help the needs of dyslexic individuals. And in do so, you'll be promoting good practice for everybody. Again, just to really repeat self, that it's not just about supporting dyslexic individuals. We know that it is supportive for everybody. And it's not just us that thinks that. I just want to share with you some excellent work achieved by Liverpool Youth Offending Team, for example, supported by our Youth Offending Project. And indeed, this photograph shows that in April, Audit, who is a dyslexia mentor for Liverpool Youth Offending Team, visited North Lincolnshire Youth Offending Team to make contact with their speech and language colleagues and really to share that good practice. And so that's another really good example as to what can be achieved with the Quality Mark. As you can see, Liverpool's Mayor, Anderson, and indeed Lord Mike Story was also present at that presentation, that award ceremony as well. They're really just helping to spread the message and to increase awareness as well to the cause. Okay, another photo to share with you there. Again, there's the Mayor of Liverpool, Joe Anderson, and his Twitter page showing acknowledging the achievement of Liverpool Youth Offending Team being awarded the quality mark. And again, it's just worth noting that this is the second time that the Liverpool Youth Offending Team have gone for verification, achieving the quality mark first off, re-verified just last year to hold the award now for a second term. But again, just don't just take our word for it. We have a quote here from Audit Jones, who obviously was photographed in the previous two slides, from the Liverpool Youth Offending Team, and Audit wanted us to record that it's justifiably much harder to retain the quality mark than to achieve it initially. Overall, it's a positive experience, and the effort is well worth the reward. Both staff and young people are benefiting from the experience, and the support from the BDA is wonderful. So thank you so much, Audit, for that positive message. Lovely. Well, I am coming to the end of the presentation now, so I just wanted to really share some dates for your diary if I can. I know Aaron kindly introduced a couple of events that are coming up from the BDA over the course of the next few months, but these ones are specifically relating to quality mark and indeed to certainly to youth offending teams as well. So if I can just move on. First event I want to draw your attention to is our conference on the 27th of November. We have some key speakers listed there, and importantly, perhaps it's a free one-day conference to discuss strategies, resources to support youth offending teams, and indeed how to support offenders. There's the link there to the BDA, excuse me, the BDA website, if anybody wants to book their place on that, but my advice would be to act quickly there, because places will fill very quickly. And then secondly, just to alert you then that we are holding our Dyslexia Friendly Quality Mark Conference on 5th of February 2015. Yes, we are talking about 2015 already. We are very, very lucky to have Neil Mackay as a guest speaker, and indeed grateful thanks to Anne-Marie from Merseyside Community Rehabilitation Company, who has also confirmed herself as a speaker at that event. And again, all those details will be available on our website if anybody wishes to book their place. Okay, so I did promise you that I put up my contact details if anybody wanted to get in touch with me with any specific questions or requests for information that they may have, and here it is. So I should just leave that up for a few seconds just for you to gain access to that. And I do believe that the whole presentation will be available for download from the website as well.
Yeah, that's right, Joe.
Okay, so thank you. Okay, so thank you so much for your attention. I appreciate I've competed with football and IT problems and all the rest of it this evening. But if anybody does have any questions, then please don't hesitate to ask.